There's a shift that women experience around 40, something almost no one talks about. One day she's cooking breakfast, folding laundry, and planning family trips. The next she's scrolling dating apps, picking out lingerie and messaging some guy from the gym. And you're left standing there, wondering how your dependable, familiar wife suddenly feels like a stranger. It's happening all around you. Countless men are watching the women they've known for years transform into someone almost unrecognizable, a mix of youth and restlessness, but with the weight of life on their shoulders. And yet when it happens, everyone acts shocked, as if the clues weren't obvious long before. You think you know her. You assume that 15 years together, raising children and building a life as partners, somehow makes her immune. But the truth, that's a fantasy. Inside every woman, there's a psychological timer quietly ticking. Between 35 and 45, it goes off. Not maybe, it will go off. The only real question is how much impact it will have. Many men fail to see that when a woman reaches her 40s, she isn't the same person you married. And I'm not talking about wisdom, experience, or maturity. I mean a deep biological shift. Her brain chemistry changes, her priorities realign, her identity rewires itself. The woman who once found contentment in family, life now craves recognition and excitement in ways that can dismantle everything you've built together. Here's the hard truth. A woman's sense of self-worth is often tied to her appearance. From childhood, society programs her. Beauty equals value. Be attractive, be wanted, be desirable. From roughly 15 to 35, this programming works flawlessly. Men chase her. Compliments are constant and she feels affirmed. Then biology intervenes. The reflection in the mirror starts to shift, not necessarily because she looks bad, but because she looks different. The face that once commanded attention now draws polite smiles at best. The body that once left men dumbstruck now passes by largely unnoticed. This isn't vanity, it's a profound identity shift. Her value, once rooted in being desired, begins to feel unstable, like sand slipping through her fingers. Think of it like an athlete whose self-worth is tied to their physical performance. Over time, the body slows, the reflexes fade, and what once brought confidence now highlights limitations. Multiply that emotional upheaval tenfold, and you start to understand the turmoil happening inside a woman, realizing her youthful allure is changing. And here's the danger. Rather than accepting this natural evolution, many women resist. They fight the clock, rebel against time, and in that battle, your marriage often becomes the first casualty. When she was 22, compliments barely registered. She rolled her eyes, confident in her appeal. But at 42, a casual remark from a stranger can trigger a rush of excitement, a dopamine hit she hasn't felt in years. A fleeting compliment from someone outside her routine life suddenly outweighs decades of your steady devotion. Why? Because your love is assumed. It's expected. His attention, however, is freely given. This is the unspoken truth. Women over 40 can become highly susceptible to attention from others, not because they want to betray, but because they crave affirmation your role in her life no longer provides. The thrill of being chosen rather than obligated is intoxicating. That first taste of outside validation can quietly start to pull her away, not immediately, but inevitably. She recalls what it felt like to be pursued, desired, and idolized. And no matter how much security and love you offer, it can't recreate that old spark. You can recognize the danger zone in your marriage when she reminisces about her past lovers with a smile rather than embarrassment, when she talks about her single days with nostalgia rather than relief. That's the warning sign. The countdown has begun. Here's the biology lesson most men never hear. A woman's brain physically rewires over time. The reward systems that once flooded her with pleasure now run weaker. The same gestures that thrilled her at 25, holding hands, attention, flirtation, now barely ripple the surface. At 20, a simple touch might have sent her heart racing. By 40, the stakes have changed, and if that change goes unmet, the consequences can ripple through the marriage, the family, and the shared life you thought was secure. By the time she reaches 40, ordinary experiences barely register. Your romantic gestures feel like background noise. That carefully planned weekend getaway. Her brain treats it as routine, nothing special. Even the intimacy you've honed over years barely registers anymore. She now requires extreme emotional stimulation just to feel alive. And you, my friend, are the exact opposite of extreme. Predictable, safe, invisible in her neurological world. This is why some of the most shocking betrayals in marriage often occur after 35, not because she's cruel, but because she's desperate to feel excitement, to reclaim a sense of self, to prove she's more than simply someone's wife. The woman who would have been thrilled holding hands at 20 now may crave intense emotional experiences just to ignite a spark. Loyalty built over 15 years can suddenly bend under this pressure. I've seen it countless times. The devoted mother leaving with her personal trainer, the church-going wife embarking on an affair with her husband's friend, the seemingly perfect partner destroying her life for someone she met online. And every time, the husband says the same thing. I never saw it coming. Really, you never noticed her subtle frustrations in the mirror, her glimmer of excitement when strangers pay attention, the way she quietly withdraws while going through the motions. The signals are always there, men just fail to see them. It often begins with nostalgia. She starts romanticizing her past, telling stories of her wilder years with a sparkle that wasn't there before. Old photos resurface. Memories of former lovers shift from embarrassment to wistful longing. She's no longer fully present. Her mind is mourning what's gone. Then new influences enter. Friends who have reinvented themselves. Often divorced women who have found freedom. These aren't real friends. They're enablers, subtly selling the idea that she deserves more. Wine nights and gossip sessions become reinforcement of discontent, reframing your stable marriage as a trap. Social media amplifies this. Hours spent scrolling curated lives feed her anxiety. Transformation stories. Women starting over, love after 40. Every post validates the story her brain wants to believe, that life elsewhere is better, and it's not too late to join. Physical changes follow. At first, it's minor tweaks. Skincare, hair treatments, small procedures she once swore she'd avoid. Gradually, it escalates. Strict diets, obsessive workouts, clothing aimed at recapturing youth rather than style. Every effort is fueled by desperation, the pursuit of looking young, not simply attractive. Emotionally, she begins to pull away. She demands space, mysterious me time, unexplained commitments. Sometimes she picks fights constantly. Other times she's unnaturally pleasant. Both are red flags. One signals preparation, the other masks guilt or planning. Society reinforces this behavior. Every magazine, talk show, and therapist tells her she deserves fulfillment above all else, that self-discovery should trump responsibility. Her feelings are validated over commitments, her desires above stability, her happiness over family. No one teaches her the inconvenient truths. Beauty fades for everyone. Attention is addictive and fleeting, and lasting fulfillment comes from building something enduring, not chasing a temporary high. The excitement she craves is largely chemical. Butterflies? Often anxiety, not love. The passion she seeks, novelty, not depth. Yet cultural messages pump her with empowerment rhetoric. Follow your heart, live your truth. Biologically, a 40-year-old woman following her impulses is no different from a 16-year-old chasing thrills. Both are slaves to hormones, and both risk destroying stability for momentary pleasure. Meanwhile, husbands are expected to understand, support and accommodate. Work on yourself, they say, as if personal growth can compete with the intoxicating dopamine of being pursued by someone new. You could become the ideal spouse overnight, and it wouldn't matter. Perfection is predictable, and predictability doesn't trigger the brain's reward system. Her friends play a dangerous role. Divorced women she admires aren't mentors, they're pushers. You deserve better. Life's too short. Don't settle. They need validation, and nothing reassures them like someone else following the same path. As she spends more time with them, ordinary marital conflicts are reframed as oppression. Every minor flaw magnified into abuse. Every stable routine turned into dissatisfaction. Every ordinary routine starts to feel oppressive. Every responsibility feels like a burden. In her mind, her entire life is suddenly filtered through the lens of victimhood. Your stable, reliable marriage becomes a cage she must escape. Your reasonable requests transform into impossible demands. Years of support are recast as years of restriction. And then there's social media. Fuel on an already raging fire. She's no longer comparing her marriage to others' marriages. She's comparing her reality to curated, filtered, carefully edited digital lives. The algorithms act like a personal coach, feeding her exactly what her anxious brain wants to hear. Leaving is courageous, staying is settling, and happiness is always just one dramatic choice away. What she doesn't see is the aftermath, the reality nobody broadcasts. The woman 6 months later, facing disappointment when her new partner turns out flawed. Celebrating Christmas alone because the kids stayed with dad. Realizing that starting over at 40 isn't liberating, it's exhausting. Understanding that she traded depth and partnership for fleeting attention, that she swapped true connection for a temporary high. Here's another key difference. Men age differently psychologically. When a man turns 40, society tells him he's entering his prime. Distinguished, confident, experienced, with resources and life knowledge, he often gains value in the dating world. Even with a growing belly or thinning hair, he feels abundant and capable. Women, by contrast, are told they're past their peak, invisible, expired. Every birthday beyond 35 is framed as a reminder that youth is gone. While men hear, like fine wine, you get better with age, women are told their time is up. This psychological divide matters. Men approach aging with confidence, women approach it with fear. Male midlife crises often involve toys, adventures, or reclaiming youth. Female midlife crises often involve denying aging by dismantling everything that reminds them time has passed, including the family that defines Years spent as a wife and mother. A 45-year-old man knows he can still attract attention if he wants, but often that knowledge alone is enough. A 45-year-old woman feels her last opportunity to be desired slipping away, driving her to act on impulses real or imagined. This isn't about fairness, it's about the stark psychological reality. Men and women process aging differently, and those differences produce profoundly different behaviors. His crisis may embarrass him. Hers can destroy families. What's more, some women rewrite history after leaving. Your shared life suddenly becomes a lie. We were never truly happy. I was pretending all along. He was always controlling. Every good memory erased. Every minor disagreement recast as abuse. She needs to portray you as the villain to justify the destruction she's caused, because admitting the truth that she destroyed something real for a temporary thrill would shatter her narrative. I remember a man whose wife left after 18 years. She told everyone he had been emotionally abusive, neglectful, that she'd been miserable for years. He was stunned. He had photos, videos, love letters written just months before she left, evidence of happy vacations, anniversaries and declarations of love. But now in her version it was all an act. The truth is simpler. She needed him to be the bad guy so she could be the hero of her own story. The children become collateral damage. She convinces herself they'll adapt, that they'll understand, that they want her happiness. But children care about stability, predictability, and having both parents present. Her midlife crisis outweighs their need for security, often leaving them in therapy years later, trying to understand why mom's pursuit of youth mattered more than the family's integrity. The timing is always the same. Just when the kids need her least, when life should finally be easier, she erupts. She finally has time to reflect, to compare herself to others, to scroll endlessly on Instagram, to remember who she once was before diapers, school runs, and soccer practice. That version of herself, young, desired, full of possibility, stands in stark contrast to the mom and wife she has become. The gap between memory and reality becomes unbearable. She isn't measuring her life against reality. She's measuring it against fantasy. Eternal youth, endless excitement, perpetual desire. She's comparing her real husband to imagined men who would worship her perfectly. She starts comparing her real life to the highlight reels of everyone else's social media. She measures her 40-year-old reality against the dreams and expectations she had at 25. And in that comparison, reality always comes up short. Here's what you need to understand. The most dangerous turning point in a marriage is when she begins receiving attention from a specific man. Not men in general, but one particular person. It might be a co-worker complimenting her haircut, an old flame reconnecting online, or her trainer remarking on how amazing she looks. The exact person doesn't matter. What matters is that suddenly there's a face attached to her fantasies. It's no longer I could have options, now it becomes he could be an option. And once that seed is planted, it spreads like a disease. She may insist it's harmless, just friendly interaction, nothing serious. But subtle changes start to appear. She mentions him too often or never at all. She guards her phone. She offers explanations for things you never questioned before. She's either picking constant fights or suddenly unusually sweet. Both are warning signs. One shows she's preparing to leave, the other shows she's wrestling with guilt. Once a woman starts down this path, the relationship is often beyond repair. She might return after the thrill fades, after the new connection disappoints, after reality crashes in. She might come back tearfully, begging for forgiveness. But even then, she's not truly the same woman. She's a stranger wearing her familiar face, carrying the memories and comparisons of another life. I've seen women with everything, wealthy husbands, beautiful homes, healthy children, walk away for a bartender who noticed them, for a fleeting passion at the gym, not because their husbands did anything wrong, but because familiarity no longer excites a 40-year-old woman. The cruel part? Many of these women know exactly what they're doing. They understand they're breaking up families, hurting children, and abandoning something real for a temporary rush, but they go through with it anyway. The fear of growing older without one last adventure outweighs their attachment to home, spouse, and children. They rationalize it. The kids will be fine. We grew apart. I wasn't happy. But these are lies they tell themselves to avoid facing the truth. They chose ego over family, validation over loyalty, themselves over everyone who depended on them. Here's the critical point. When you grasp female psychology at this stage, it's not about you personally. Your wife isn't leaving because you failed. She's leaving because she's struggling to accept the reality of aging. She isn't running towards something better. She's running from the inevitable: time, change, mortality. And unfortunately, you represent all of that. Even though you've been her partner through it all. Think about the irony. You were there when she was young and radiant. You chose her when she had options. You committed when you could have explored. You built a life together, raised children, created lasting memories. And your reward? Being abandoned at a moment when she's most vulnerable, when she should be grateful for someone who sees beyond the surface, who recognizes the woman beneath the wrinkles. Gratitude requires clarity. And clarity is incompatible with panic. Yet society applauds her, hailing her as brave, living her truth, finding herself. Nobody talks about the husband left reeling, struggling to explain to his children why their mother now lives with someone else. Nobody counts the endless commutes between broken homes or measures the emotional toll of a woman's midlife panic. The modern woman wasn't prepared for this. She grew up as a princess, told she would always be special, desired and endlessly pursued. No one warned her about the inevitable wall every woman eventually hits. No one taught her that beauty is a fleeting asset, that male attention is a fleeting addiction, that building something enduring matters more than chasing temporary thrills. Instead, she was fed messages like, "You deserve better. Follow your heart. Happiness comes first." So when her feelings shift, when she believes happiness exists elsewhere, when she thinks she deserves more, she acts without hesitation, consequences or concern for the family, vows or stability. I tell men who come to me shattered by this, it was never about you. You could have been perfect, and she still might have left. You could have been flawed, and she might have stayed. Her choices have nothing to do with your worth as a husband. They are about her struggle to accept reality. You are simply collateral damage in her battle against time. The woman who promised to love you forever meant it, but that was the 25-year-old version of her. Full of hormones, receiving attention from everywhere, confident in her allure. The 40-year-old wearing the same skin is a completely different person. Different brain chemistry, different priorities, different fears. The woman you married no longer exists. She has been replaced by someone who looks familiar but thinks entirely differently. And here's the cruel truth. She will never admit this. She won't say, "I destroyed my family because I fear aging." She won't confess, "I needed the attention of strangers more than I needed a stable home for my children." She won't own the fact that her ego mattered more than the people who depended on her. Instead, she rewrites the story so that she becomes the heroine, escaping oppression, discovering herself, living her truth. The harsh reality? There is very little you can do to prevent it. If her sense of self revolves around being desired, if male validation dictates her happiness, then this collapse is inevitable. You're not married to a woman, you're married to a ticking time bomb. And somewhere around 40 it goes off. You can't talk her down. You can't love her through it. You can't fix it with therapy, because this isn't a marital issue. It's an existential one. And in that crisis, you're the embodiment of what she's trying to escape. Aging, predictability, mortality. Your presence is a constant reminder that youth has faded, options are limited, and her story is mostly written. So what should a man do? First, recognize the warning signs early. If her identity is built on beauty, if she thrives on male attention, if she struggles with aging gracefully, you are at risk. Second, understand that her leaving is not a reflection of your failings. You cannot fix someone's relationship with time. Third, protect yourself and your children. Keep records. Secure your assets. Be prepared. Because when a woman over 40 decides to upend her life, she can take everyone down with her. The brutal truth: modern culture has not built women for lasting relationships. They have been trained for attention, validation, and constant novelty. They are taught to chase feelings instead of foundations, to see commitment as restriction and excitement as enlightenment. When the excitement fades, and it always does, they panic and flee. This is not true for all women. Some understand that beauty fades but character endures. They know that thrills are temporary, while building something lasting is permanent. They realize that being chosen once and kept forever outweighs repeated fleeting attention. But these women are increasingly rare, as modern culture glorifies the other type. So if your wife is approaching 40, watch closely. Not for infidelity, but for signs of panic, obsession with youth, longing for the past, craving external validation, resentment of responsibility. These are warning signals that the emotional bomb is about to detonate. And when it does, it can devastate your life, your children's stability, and years of shared effort. The truth nobody wants to face: women over 40 don't just leave, they destroy. Not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of aging, fear of becoming invisible, fear of being ordinary. And in that fear, they will sacrifice everything and everyone around them to feel extraordinary. Just one more time, don't say you weren't warned.